Hi everybody, I'm Jay Fenichel. Welcome to the Drummer's Almanac Drum Lesson Vault. Right now I want to talk to you about the full stroke. This is in the accent category of drumming, and it's probably the most important lesson to learn on the drums. And I know that's a pretty bold statement, but I firmly believe that this is probably one of the most important things that a drummer can really understand and internalize when it comes to learning the instrument. And the thing with the full stroke is it's the idea of understanding and accepting the rebound of the stick across the drum. Now, I know terminology is different. Some people say free stroke, some people say full strokes. Everyone has different ideas of what they call this, rebound stroke, whatever you want to say it is. But basically, it's just the idea of accepting the rebound of the stick. Learning that you come down for 50% of the energy, the stick comes back up for the other 50%. And like I said, that's probably the most important thing to understand because it goes back to your touch and your feel when you're playing around the drums. It's very important that you get that feeling down. So like anything, we're going to start where your stick touches your hands, back at your fulcrum. Now, we talk about the fulcrum a lot in these lessons, but it's that important. The fulcrum has to be there. Without the fulcrum, you can't feel rebound. And what a lot of drummers do is they end up squeezing, pushing, and losing the fulcrum. So developing a strong and relaxed fulcrum is the key to developing your feel and your touch. And the way to really practice it comes right back to the full stroke. Okay, what is a full stroke? A full stroke is an accented stroke. It's a loud stroke. And the idea of any accented stroke is to set itself up. So what a full stroke does, it starts in this position, which is we also call full position because we're pointing up towards the ceiling. And essentially, we're going to come down to the pad, make an accent, and the stick is going to bounce back up, and then we're going to catch it back at this original position. Now, of course, you don't let go of the stick completely or else the stick will go flying. But you want to, inside your fulcrum, keep it relaxed, keep it loose, and let the stick bounce back up to your original spot. And that's what we're trying to do. Now, if you watch that, it's going really quick. But what I'm doing is I'm coming down with my wrist and I'm bouncing it back to my original position. Now I'm not pulling it. It might even look like I'm going down and then pulling back up. 50% of the way down, 50% of the way up. But that's not what I'm doing. I'm actually just coming down. The stick is coming up by itself. I'll do that again, very slow. As I come down, the stick rebounds back up. And if you notice, it rebounds off of my fulcrum. Very important. Now, this isn't a true full stroke because let's see where my hand's ending up. I'm just kind of ending up with my hand here. And you want to be back in a position where you could hit that drum a second time. So the fulcrum has got to come back to its original position and you got to be ready to hit it again. Now, if you might notice, if I do it right here in my left hand, you'll see my fingers are coming out at the very end. It means I'm almost kind of letting go of that stick, except for the fulcrum, which is staying nice and relaxed, letting the stick rebound, then catching it back. Very important to understand that that's what we're doing. Now, that's good doing it fast. That's showing you what it looks like, the end result of it. I want to talk a little bit about how this is going to feel when you actually go to practice it. First thing we have to do, once again, is make sure our fulcrum is good. So looking at our right hand over here, I'm using my thumb and my middle finger as the fulcrum. Doesn't really matter where you like to use it. In fact, I recommend practicing this against all your different fulcrums to get good at it. And this is a great exercise, something I saw Dave Weckl do in a video and at a drum clinic. He talked about just finding your fulcrum by putting the stick into this position. And if you notice, I have this space right here. And this is my right hand. And in match grip, it's pretty much the same in your left also. And you're just going to feel the stick coming back. And make sure that track of the stick rebounding is nice and smooth and none of your fingers are in the way. Everything just stays very relaxed and that stick just has some track to follow. Just moves across your fingers, nice and relaxed. This is the first thing. You don't want to do this fast. You want to do this nice and slow and find that track. It's hard to do, just a simple thing like this. Now notice I'm just going very slow, making sure nothing is in my way. No fingers are curled underneath. That's stopping it. I'm not going to knock the stick out of the fulcrum like that because now I'm not on my thumb anymore. You want to make sure your thumb stays on the side of the stick, your fulcrum's in the right space, and the stick is coming up to this spot. Once you feel like you have that, step 2 is going to be to knock this stick back at a fairly good rate. Now notice with my left hand, I'm just hitting the back of the stick or the front of the stick. and I'm knocking it back across that fulcrum, and then I'm using my fingers just to flick it back to its original spot. I also want you to realize my form. If you notice, my wrist is straight. I'm not in here, which is what some drummers do. They kind of play like this and hit it back towards their face. I don't like this form, personally. This is something that if you go back through some of the form exercises, you'll see why I actually prefer this, which is a more natural way your hand hangs. In doing that, the stick is actually going to go more over your shoulder than towards your face. If you notice, it's coming out towards my floor tom. It's not coming out towards me. So I want you to feel that. And notice I'm not flinging it back with my fingers. I can do that, but I want to actually let my hand push the stick back and feel that fulcrum. Now I want to do this until I'm blue in the face. I want to sit there and practice this, reset it. Practice it, reset it. Now you also might notice that in my left hand, I'm following through. I'm not doing that, which is tight. I'm just staying relaxed and following all the way through up to my ear. Straight through, knocking that stick all the way back. Now if you do this right, a lot of times you're going to knock that stick right out of your hand, which is going to happen. And if it does, it does. I'd rather see you be loose than be tight and then stopping that stick from moving. You got to be loose and let that stick just do its thing. And you want to practice this in both hands. Make sure you're feeling the feeling. Now, if you notice, my fingers, my left hand, are getting out of the way of the stick. They're curled right now around the stick, but as I hit, my fingers will actually stop the stick from coming back if I keep my fingers curled around. So at the second or the moment of impact, I got to straighten those fingers out and let that stick come all the way back. So find your fulcrum nice and slow. There it is. And then let it come back. Remember, if you're not clear on the fulcrum, this is not the fulcrum lesson. So go back to your drum lesson vault, look up the lesson on the fulcrum, and it'll go through how to find this. And I bet we'll do a lot of these same type of exercises. Once we found that fulcrum, we've knocked it back a bunch of times. It feels good. Next thing I want you to do is try this with the stick. So take the stick in your left hand and knock it back. The stick is going to knock it back at a much faster rate. And it really is going to want to jump out of your hands. And the urge to squeeze in here is going to be much bigger. Now remember, you don't want to squeeze. You want to keep that as loose as can be. Now notice I'm also following through with my left hand, coming all the way up to my ear. Letting that stick knock all the way back. You want to do it in your left hand also. Let's do it this way. And let that stick come all the way back. Keeping that fulcrum very relaxed. Don't be afraid to really knock it. A lot of times you are going to lose the stick. It's going to go flying out of your hand. That's fine. Just so long as you keep that fulcrum relaxed. Don't practice this in a tense way. All right, the last step, the third and final step here of finding your full stroke is I want you to feel that same rebound that we're getting this way off of the actual drum. So right now I'm going to use a Moeller stroke because I get a lot of power from a Moeller stroke. So I'm going to start low down. I'm going to do a whip stroke. Now, if you see there, I controlled it. I stopped the rebound. This time I'm going to accept it. I'm going to let that stick come flying back by opening my fingers. The fulcrum hasn't changed. The fulcrum stayed very relaxed. So I do that, and the stick comes flying back into this position. Notice it rests completely parallel to my index finger and comes right into this little horseshoe-shaped spot, the valley in between my thumb and my index. And it just comes right back there. Now, I've been practicing this, so you're going to get that same feeling. You also notice that the stick goes back off into my right shoulder, not towards my face, because then my form would be weird. So I want to keep the stick in line with my hands. In this case, it's going to go out that way, not this way. So don't line up with your eyes, line up with your hands. Now again, this is my way of feeling it. If your teacher taught you something different, every teacher has a different spin on this. This is what just made sense to me when I was practicing it, and certain teachers that brought it to my attention back in the day. Very good. So once you've done this, you've practiced this a lot, you can feel that rebound and accept it. The next thing I want you to try to do is actually catch that rebound in this full position. So you're going to come around and try to bring your hand up. Now notice it took me a second to find it. The stick's coming back so fast that I'm trying to actually catch it and come back to that position. You see? Now I don't care if it looks bad. Eventually you'll practice it and it'll get like that. Always start low, whip it, catch it. Now if you do it right, your thumb should be right on that stick. It shouldn't be off the stick. It shouldn't be falling to the side. It should be right on the side, just like that. There we go. That way your fulcrum is intact and you're catching that stick. That's how you start learning how to accept the the rebound. Once you understand this and you've done it a whole bunch of times, the last step is to really start from the full position, come straight down, and let the stick rebound with that same feeling. So you get full strokes that happen over and over again. Now, those of you that are part of the Drummer's Almanac, that are in the membership and practice with me every single day, know that we start every practice session with full strokes. The reason for that is I want you all to be aware of the 50-50 motion that comes from full strokes. By practicing these, you learn how to shut off half of your muscles. Now, when I was in school, I had a great teacher tell me, I don't know how true this is physically or with the body or whatever, but he told me that it takes 9 muscles in your wrist to push the stick down. Now, for those of you doctors out there, I don't know if that's exactly right, but that's what he told me. So that's how we're going to go about it. 9 muscles to bring the stick down. He said there's another 9 muscles on the other side of your wrist that are going to pull to bring the stick up. So altogether, that's 18 muscles to come down and up. By implementing a full stroke, you're using 9 to come down. The stick comes up by itself, 0 pulling. You're catching. Therefore, you're cutting an 18 muscle motion into a 9 muscle motion, cutting everything in half. That's a huge savings in terms of your energy. So learning how to do this on a consistent basis eventually will open your hands up to the point where the stick is always rebounding. It's always coming off of your hands. And we call this playing out of the drum because the rebound is taking you the other 50% of the motion. Very, very important thing to practice. In fact, I could even tell you a quick little story. A teacher of mine in high school had the opportunity of meeting Buddy Rich very briefly after a show, and he had the opportunity to ask Buddy a question. Now, Buddy's not known to be a teacher. Buddy was not known to really give much advice in terms of drumming to other drummers, but I guess he felt bad for my teacher, who was then a kid, and my teacher had asked him to show him something. So Buddy replied, I'm going to show you something, and I'm only going to show it to you once, one time. It's up to you to figure out why it's important. Now, the exercise he showed him was that. And he did it once, and that was it. And he said, now go home and figure out why that's important. Now, my teacher at the time just thought Buddy was being kind of a jerk. In actuality, he was showing him probably the most important thing that you could learn on the drums. When my teacher went back to his teacher at the time and explained the story to him, his teacher had said to him, well, actually, there's a reason Buddy showed you that, and brought him into the full strokes. So that's how it was explained to me in terms of the importance of practicing this exercise, and I want to instill that in you to go ahead and think about it this way and practice this exercise. Take a lot of care in getting it right, because this is going right back to your touch, your feel, your form, everything that really is going to come back to your playing and make you feel and sound great directly relates to the full stroke. So I really want you to understand it, work on it, practice it. So thanks so much for checking out my lesson on the full stroke. I hope it's nice and clear. Feel free to reach out to us, get in touch, let us know if we can help you in any way with getting this stuff together. As I mentioned, the Drummer's Almanac, we do this every single day because it's that important, something you really want to condition. I also build it into our exercises. So in addition to just practicing this on your own, you want to find compound exercises in your practice that incorporate this feeling so you always get the repetition. Also, think about it when you're just playing with a band, how often you're going to be using that full stroke, whether you're playing a groove, fills, whatever. It's such an important feeling. I can't stress it enough. So I hope you guys had a great lesson. Thanks for checking it out, and I'll see you guys on the next one.